she has been called everything from Baby Aretha to the human horn. The first black woman to lead a garage rock band and the queen of funk. But before any title, she is Chaka Khan, born Yvette Marie Stevens in 1953.
It's a crime.
Alright, so one of her favorite singers is Aretha Franklin. And she uses her voice pretty similarly.
If you're frightened and confused.
As a singer, do you hear somebody and be like, I want to make that sound? And then that's how you become influenced? Or do you say, okay, I recognize my voice can do bloom. Here's somebody else that can do it. And that's how I mold my sound.
I think they're both things are true. I think when you hear a singer, you mimic them.
Yeah, if you're
when you're young, that's your gauge, that's your entry point. And you're like, I want to sing like this person. So then you start to mimic the sounds that they make, mimic the characteristics of the way that they sing.
wanna be there when the world kicks you out. Just to let you know that
Your voice, when you figure out that your voice can do the very same things that they do, then you sort of start to find your own style through learning the craft or learning more songs or having things written for you.
And when they were calling me Aretha, I was like, what are they talking about? So in my wildest dreams, I never thought, that I was that good singer.
and you're not afraid to cry. Don't it feel good?
Many comparisons to Aretha lie within her vocal range and how she uses her voice. But in terms of coloring her vocal lines and her phrasing, comparisons have been drawn to Tata Vega,
I'm coming in with the spirit of the northern wind, yeah.
who, like Khan, started in an alt soul funk rock band. Vocally, there are similarities in how they shape their words and phrases.
Could find I found silence again, once again.
The band's third album, Rufusized, is a landmark album for the band and for Khan. Critics said Khan is finally evolving into a distinctive approach beyond the borrowings of Aretha Franklin. With the first two albums, critics noted that while Khan boasts an impressive vocal range, she is overly fond of histrionic displays. But as one music critic said, Khan is finally showing that she can sing soul.
I can tell by the look that's in your eye.
This feeling of softness is likely created by Khan's use of head voice. Traditionally, across music genres such as classical music and the blues, women who utilized a lot of chest voice in their sound were seen as wild or unladylike. In pedagogy books such as The Art of Singing, the head voice is described as the most highly prized voice because of the loveliness of the quality. The head voice generally lives on the oo and e vowel sounds, and that is where you'll find her using it the most.
When she prepare your do, that's head voice.
More times than not, you will often hear people say, Chaka Khan doesn't have a head voice. But she does. It's more so that the head voice maintains the quality of her chest voice.
different muscles that control chest register and head register. And they are supposed to blend. They're supposed to be like an even. It's like a relay race. One sort of hands off to the other. So at the very top, you might have just little remnants of chest register. And at the bottom, you have a little remnants of head register. So that it's like a cohesive whole.
Voice teacher and scientist William Russell has described this as an oral tone quality, which is characterized by peculiar roundness, fullness, and resonance that combines the purity of the head tone, but the reverberation of the chest tone. The easiest way to identify when Khan is using a head voice is by the roundness in the sound. When you hear her sing in live settings, when she does use a head voice, it often sounds too loud for the microphone.
But that's that column of sound that I talk about. Keeping the column open so you can have access to both parts of your voice. You don't have power without chest voice. There's no power without the connection. And then there's no height and beauty, right? And in colors without the head voice. You have to have both of them.
Rufus' size is noted by critics for Khan beginning the early stages of establishing her sound. But this album also marks Chaka Khan being recognized as Chaka Khan.
Do you think you'll leave the group maybe and try it on your own?
No.
With headlines asking, is Rufus just a backup band? With the group's popularity directly being linked to Chaka Khan. Their follow-up album and ultimately new name will be titled Rufus featuring Chaka Khan. While Rufus and Chaka Khan are considered pioneers within the funk music genre, during their rise and peak popularity, they were actually considered a rock band. The band told journalist Mary Campbell, "The base of our music is rock and roll, not R&B. We don't like being categorized." While many associate Tina Turner with being the face of black women singing rock music, a decade before Private Dancer, you had Rufus being recognized as one of the greatest and most popular rock bands, but Chaka Khan being considered one of the greatest rock singers. With Khan being recognized as the center of the group, one critic noted that the band's arrangements were being made to complement her voice. If you look at a lot of the keys she sings in, the music is being centered around her being able to sing a high F or G at the top of the staff.
Must I tell you what to do? Smiling, smiling.
And then there are pieces such as Egyptian Song, which is centered around her high F.
That is pretty fabulous.
Yes, but you saw the voice got a little texture that if the longer she had to sustain it, she was getting tired.
She was getting tired, right? Because it's a little undersupported. You got to support those. You got to. You can't just like
According in her recordings, G is like the last note. She can really like have some vibrato on you. The A flat, A, B flat are just straight tone.
Right.
So how do the extremities of the range work?
Well, if you can't vibrate on it, it's probably not your note, right? Like it's just you pushing the chords together to make a sound. If you're having an emotional moment and you just want to, sing something that's out of the stratosphere, that's different. But again, the chords can only stretch but so far, before they top out. But that's pretty damn good for F sharp to be your in G. And if you can, but you have to have a little bit over you have to have a couple of notes over the high note, right? In order for the highest note to sound solid. So you always warm up a third or whatever if you can higher.
Oh, well, that would make sense why B flat is her limit, because G is her okay.
Exactly.
Roll me through the rushes.
The lowest note she can sing with vibrato is a round tenor low E to E flat. Her lowest notes in a song typically lie around low G and low A, which can be found in her vocal lines. So looking at her music, we can place her comfortable singing range at around low G to high F. During her tenure with Rufus, we see the first comparisons of Khan to a horn. But the likeness was drawn not from critics and listeners, but from Khan herself, who told the LA Times, "I think of myself as a horn, a sax. I feel more like an instrument than a singer." Khan has often mentioned that jazz has informed a lot of her musical taste. Those scats mimic the riff of a horn. As it concerns the quality of her voice, critics described it as mellow and earthy, but capable of great range. That is not to say that the horn sound wasn't there, but one could make an argument that it wasn't as pronounced, and it didn't go throughout the entire voice as it would in the coming years. Using the splitter tool, we can assess different clips of her throughout her career. In this 1974 clip, the voice is still identified as a voice. In a 1978 clip, she's singing in the same range, and the computer is still able to distinguish her from the other instruments. In this 1981 clip of her singing in the same range, the voice is now being recognized as an instrument. The distinction between all of these clips is that the horn sound at one point was mostly used at the very top of the voice for her high E, F, G, and A notes. in some schools of singing, it is encouraged to thin or lighten the voice in the upper range to make high notes easier. So thinning the voice into a more horn-like sound helps her navigate the upper range. While we can measure how her voice became more instrument-like over time, the question is, what did it mean for her music? The run of albums between 1978 and 1986 shows exactly what happens when technique meets creative confidence. Her debut begins her collaboration with producer Aretha Martin. While the album is most notable for its hit, I'm Every Woman, and is considered a defining record in the R&B and funk genre, the real beauty of this album is in the artists who comprise it. While backing vocals are provided by gospel giants such as Cissy Houston, a lot of the core album support is provided by prominent figures within the jazz and rock genres. The same notion reigns true for Naughty. The formula of bringing multi-genre artists together to produce an album will continue on What You Gonna Do For Me, which one critic said, teaming again with Aretha Martin, slowly but surely the two began to craft an even more successful and innovative sound. This album would be the first of hers to also place on the jazz charts, mainly off the heels of Night in Tunisia. On this record, we can actually hear how her musical instincts mimic that of a jazz horn player. Towards the end of the song, the band plays a D minor chord. In this single phrase, Chaka sings different variations of the D minor chord. In harmony, there is consonance, which refers to a combination of notes that sound pleasing to the ear, that create a sense of stability and resolution. And then there is dissonance, which involves a combination of notes that produce a jarring or harsh quality, leading to a sense of tension and disharmony. In the 40s, I'm not in Tunisia. In commercial music, a dissonant sound is always expected to resolve into consonance. But Chaka doesn't do that. On the word Tunisia, she sings a tritone, F and B. Not in Tunisia. The B never resolves because it has nowhere to resolve, and it's the prominent note that she is singing. I'm not in Tunisia.
A lot of the horn players have been my models for voice.
In the 40s, I'm not in Tunisia.
What she is doing is using her voice like a bebop or jazz horn player to move the colors of the D minor chord. And this recording would prompt music critic Mike Hall to ask, is Chaka ready to move up from this album and do full-on jazz?
You started something with them there eyes.
And she would with the release of Echoes of an Era, which the Clarion Ledger would write, it's good to hear commercial success crossing over into jazz because it will lead to crossover fans. The Charlotte Post would write, for a performer to transcend the barriers of color and status and to produce music that the masses clamor for is quite the achievement. Chaka Khan gave the world a style and sound that is not confined to race, creed, or color, and the world in return has accepted her music with all of its energy and force. accept it until she released her self-titled 1982 album, which the Santa Barbara News wrote, "Why do so many successful singers feel impelled to leave the styles that made them good and popular to make serious music?" According to one music critic, the album flopped because there weren't many identifiable sounds to connect to her earlier work. You got a little country western with Best in the West. There is some new wave rock with Twisted.
Gotta be there, be there.
There's some pop with her reimagining of Michael Jackson's Got to Be There. There's R&B with her duet with Rick James. But the standout track on this album is Bebop Medley, a jazz greatest hits medley where she sings all of the vocals, covering every vocal range from baritone to soprano. This recording would lead jazz artists such as Betty Carter to call Chaka the greatest jazz singer not working in jazz. The Santa Barbara News said the tune had her extending her creative range. But not only was she extending herself creatively, but also vocally. As one of her hardest pieces of music lie on this record with Tearing It Up. Generally, she will be between E and G are like the highest parts of her song. So she's always going to find her way to one of them. But I think F is like her good note. But something I think is interesting is like she has a song called Tearing It Up, where she has to do a lot of F sharps. So that's her best note in her throat. But if she has to do many of them, she gets like very tired. Mm-hmm. Can you explain, like, even though it's your best note in your throat, why you would get tired having to do it over and over again?
Because the throat is not meant to do high notes over and over again. Just because it's your best and it's easy, your throat is flesh. No matter how much you can do curls, if you do too many of them, you're going to get tired, right? You can't. It's not meant to be abused. And like the old school diva said, you only get so many good high notes in your lifetime, and if you use all of them, good luck.
Using her experience with this song, it can be implied that she likes to visit those notes at the top and above the staff. But she doesn't like to stay there. With this varied collection of music, the Lincoln Star will write, Khan could never rightfully be pegged as a fiery soul singer. And the LA Times would write, the album only doesn't work on a casual level because it makes strong demands of the listener. Khan's talent is original, and this album indicates that she is one of the most exciting risk takers of her generation. And while the experimentation of the Chaka Khan album wasn't rewarded with commercial success, she would take another risk by creating a body of work in step with the times. I thought the song and album would be a joke, said Chaka to the Palm Beach Post. I thought it was bubblegum, an embarrassment. While Khan was adamant from the jump about not liking I Feel For You, the song and the album, Newsday called it her finest moment yet. I Feel For You has widened Khan's sphere of accessibility. It's a measure of her popularity that her audience at her Westbury show has now crossed age and color lines. In a 1984 survey polled by the Pottsville Republican, nearly half of teenagers listed rock music as their favorite genre. Newsday cited I Feel For You as the perfect soulful cross between ballad and rock and roll. Despite being credited for its influence on hip-hop, winning an R&B Grammy, various media outlets cite I Feel For You as a rock song. With the release of I Feel For You and its follow-up Destiny, music critics called Khan a wild mix of Tina Turner and Aretha Franklin. Newsweek would place her alongside Madonna and Cyndi Lauper in their article Women of Rock and Roll. With more successful singles such as Through the Fire, Khan's popularity would skyrocket, to which she told the Palm Beach Post, "It's all on me. It's taken me some time to get used to the fact that I didn't have anybody there to share the good and bad with."
When the first hit, when you had the first big song, the breakthrough song.
Right, that was the breakthrough song.
What was going through your head at that time? Like
Drugs.
Oh wow, okay.
A bad system.
Wow.
Lord. Okay.
So you don't quite remember it then?
A lot of it
Okay.
was a blur.
Khan states she doesn't remember much of her time at the top because of her drug use. While there are times where we do see her inebriated, we often hear it more times than not. Around 84 through when I Feel For You is a big hit, her drug use increases. So she says in her book, she was always hoarse.
Over the rainbow. What am I doing? This is not my song.
The Lincolnshire Echo even reported that Khan was only making it through her I Feel For You tour by taking steroid shots for a throat infection. After more concert cancellations, the Times Leader will report that Miss Khan had a severe case of polyps, a throat infection, and that the remaining stops on her US tour would need to be canceled. The polyps can be directly linked to Khan's drug and alcohol use.
Obviously, the edges of the cords are very swollen. That's the reason why you have the hoarse sound. So if they're coming together, you can see it, like they're not quite coming together, right? And you're trying to make the sound, you're going up for the and it can't come together.
When she's in this voice, the voice just always sounds in the back. But something that I think is interesting is that, like in other parts of this concert, just in other clips, the head voice actually still works. How does that work?
Because the chords have to come together. When you go up to the they have to come together for the sound, for them to vibrate. And so what the head voice does is it gives you the access and the support that you need for them to come together. If not, do like this and you get all the crap in the air coming through and everything.
So of course she develops nodules because she said the drugs, the singing on the drugs. So she says in her book she had no highs, no lows, just a few notes in the middle. So I guess that's essentially a non-functioning voice. She would have surgery to have the nodules removed and would enroll in vocal rehabilitation and therapy with Seth Riggs. And I will play a clip of her singing Ain't Nobody, the same phrase before and after she went to him. That is two completely different, like, to my ears, voices and sounds.
Not to me.
Really? In a concert post-surgery, a critic wrote, Khan's voice was brassy. Another review stated, Khan's vocal technique imitated a trumpet that could put her in position to climb a horn case and rent herself out as a band instrument. In the mid to late 80s, music critics are now unanimously likening her voice quality to a horn. She brings that horn sound, starting at that she used to only bring at the top, she brings it all the way down throughout the entire voice. And so that's after she does the voice teaching type thing.
It sounded like what I saw in the first clip was that her tongue was really kind of high on the sides and the back.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she had a little bit more closed off space. And then after she started rebuilding her instrument, she found all these upper partials of her voice. That second sound sounded like it didn't have any tongue necessarily tension or pressure that was adding to it at all. It felt very high and very, very resonant. It's that same position that babies use. It's just it is not on the throat. It's above it, right? But it's behind the nose, kind of. Really, really high placement. When you sing on the chord, that's when you have vocal damage. The chords get so thick and you lose your range. But when they're together and they're really kind of together and they're vibrating and you are singing up in that higher registration, you can sing like that forever.
Khan's very forward and high placement opens up a discussion for one of the longest running debates in vocal technique: the use of the nose and nasality in singing. Some literature, such as David Clark Taylor's The Psychology of Singing, mentions how some teachers believe that placing the voice in or around the nasal region helps the voice obtain a pointed and projected quality. Comparing Chaka singing the same thing before and after the vocal crisis, you'll notice the sound is loud, but it's more pointed in quality. On the other hand, Thomas Phil Brown's Resonance in Singing and Speaking, he mentions that nasal resonance will naturally occur when the voice is completely free and the vibrations are able to vibrate off of the nasal cavity. When Khan sings a high F like this, she is using the nasal area as a resonator. And when she sings it like this, she is using the nasal area to resonate. What he got her to do, I mean, she sort of kind of was doing it on her own, but just for a certain part of the voice, he just got her to shift the entire focus like up here.
Up here. Yes, all the way up here.
The debate around the use of nasality and nasal resonance continues to this very day. And one can say that it just comes down to personal preference and choice. Because, as we can see and hear firsthand, Chaka has sung in ways that both sides would agree and disagree with. But it's ultimately the nasal forward placement that gives her iconic horn-like sound. A horn sounds like a horn because a lot of air is being blown through a small space. When the sound was less horn-like, you can see that there's more space in her mouth, meaning the throat is more open. When she shifts to a more horn-like quality, you will notice the tongue is more present in her singing, which means there is less space being used. Looking at this diagram, you can see that the nasal space that she sings in is a lot smaller. We can assume that she is singing with the same amount of air. But if there's less space for the air to pass through, you get the horn sound. And looking at this clip again, you can see the tongue is very present in the mouth, and the hole she's singing through is really small, similar to a horn. The 80s began with great success, with critics calling her the biggest innovator of her generation. And upon the release of her last album of the decade, CK, critics said, she's no longer the innovator, and she is searching to find her place in today's music.
Yeah.
Okay. See what Chaka's up to these days.
Right.
But you do make your home in London and Germany?
London and Germany, yes.
Oh, how long ago did you move there?
Well, it's been about almost 3 years now.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, I just needed another change of pace. You know, I needed like some different geography to look at and to disassociate myself with a lot of stuff that I was into in the States here, and to just really get back to myself.
Chaka credits her move to Europe as helping her turn her life around and deciding to take her career into her own hands with the release of The Woman I Am. While not a huge commercial success, the album marked a major personal milestone, an album which she served as producer for the very first time, and it reinvigorated her relationship with the public by launching her as a successful touring act. After a concert, the Miami Herald wrote, Chaka Khan can still sing despite a life that has had enough physical and emotional turmoil to wreck a set of pipes. In a 1992 interview, looking back on her success from the 70s and 80s, she told the Jackson Patriot, "You couldn't pay me to go through my 20s or half of my 30s again. I'm amazed that I'm alive. I lived a very lonely existence. All of my successes, I've done them myself. I've always supported my family. I've always been the man in my situation. This was a big responsibility, and I took it badly. It was too much for me." While chart success was elusive, it can be seen as another period of creative exploration. She established herself as a mainstay on the jazz festival circuit. She is directly aligned with some of the biggest Black cultural moments of the time period, such as Waiting to Exhale and Set It Off.
I'm gonna tell you what we need. We need faith. Have faith and we'll believe.
And she even ventured into musical theater to great acclaim. The story of Chaka Khan tells us that external success and validation does not always equal internal happiness.
We don't talk about the transitions in women between 18 and 21, 24, 26, or 27 and 28 is a big year, because then you go through your next transition between that up until 32. And then 32, you have your another shift for the next couple of years to where the voice fills out and does whatever it's going to do, you know, then you land in your 40s. And then there's another vocal shift in your early 40s into your mid 40s. And, you know, then you're getting into your prime, right? There's all of these steps. Then you're getting into your prime juicy years of singing. And then once you get into you're good into your 50s, 55, then you have another shift. So you work your whole life. You work all those tireless times to have 10 years of the maximum when your potential reaches its, its fullness in those 10 years. And then somewhere along that, well, menopause creeps in, if you've had children, and then life, just life.
As it stands today, Khan continues to amaze fans with being able to still hit the notes of her youth. The older, women particularly become, so like a Chaka Khan or something, Aretha Franklin, the sound becomes more,
They tend to stick it in the nose or stick it so far forward away from the vocal cord, because sometimes that's really the only way that after years and years of singing, you can actually reach those notes. Theater people, everybody does that so that they can sing for eight shows a week. It's very, that nasal sound takes a lot of the pressure off the throat, right? And so the time after time, they just stick it in the nose. And as you get older, you lose a lot of the beauty, the bloom. And so you have to still try to find that same type of resonance in that sound. Efficiency is what you're going for. And it's it can cost you. But again, listen, particularly women, as you age, the voice ages, and just the menopause and the hormones and all those things really affect your voice,
But two notable distinctions are that she incorporates more of her body into her singing. Watching clips of her as an older woman, you'll often see her activating her abdominal muscles to support the sound.
These big muscles back here are designed to support the voice and the body.
The other thing you'll notice is that the voice now has acquired a straight tone quality throughout a lot of the vocal range. I will play a clip of her singing something 30 years apart, and then I will ask the question. All right, and here's her singing it 30 years later.
People straight tone, they hold the chords together because they can hold the note.
This is common among women who continue to sing well into their 60s and 70s.
When you age or when you have vocal damage, or when you're aging, when you have an aging voice. Mm-hmm. So instead of just releasing the sound, like when you're young, you make a sound and you release the sound. But when you get older, you hold on to the throat, you hold on to the chords, you hold on to the notes so that you can control them. But when you have to let them go, and let the air move and vibrate the chords, that's when you get sometimes a wobble, or the intonation lags, either sharp or flat.
But the hallmark of a great singer is that no matter the condition of their voice, they can still move an audience. And Chaka has done that for over 50 years.